Hey, Algebra 2, we're going to move on and we are going to now write equations given words. So before we do that, let's review. So if A, the number in front of your grouping symbol, is a negative, that means it's going to reflect. If A is a number between 0 and 1, it's going to compress. And if A is a number bigger than 1, it's going to stretch. And then if H goes left, you're going to have a plus. If H goes right, you're going to have a minus there. And then if your function moves up, you're going to have a plus number off at the end. And if it goes down, you're going to have a minus number off at the end. So we've had lots of practice where we take an equation and we describe the functions. So let's practice and do that one more time. So there is the A, the H, and the K. So let's keep going. This means if I wanted to state my transformations, since A is -1, that means it made it reflect. Since H is -2, it lied and it actually went right 2 units. And K is 3, and that means it moved up 3 units. So now we're going to be given these words, and we're going to have to work backwards and write the equation that goes with it. So we're going to start off with the absolute value. So here it is in general form. So the first word says you're going to compress by 1/2. So if you look up at your notes at the top, the phrase compress is associated with A. So A is going to be 1/2. If it goes to the right, that is associated with your H, and it moves down 3, that phrase is associated with K. So now I just need to plug these numbers in for their variables and write the equation. So A is 1/2, so Y equals 1/2. I'm using the absolute value function, so I'm going to have bars. Right 5, your x always lies, so that would be x minus 5. And if you move down 3, that means you're going to have a -3 at the end. The next one, your graph reflected, that is associated with A, and that means A is going to be negative or -1. Moving left or right is associated with H, and moving down is associated with K. So A is, you could either have negative or -1 there, whatever you want to do. I'm going to make my absolute values a little bolder so it doesn't blend with my -1. If I move left 12, that means it's going to look like 8x plus 12, because your x always lies. And then down 8 means it's going to go -8. Number 4, we are going to reflect and compress. So these are both A functions. So if A reflects, that means that it's going to be a negative and it's going to compress. It's going to be that fraction. So A is these two parts working together, and it's going to be -1/4. Right is associated with H, and up and down is associated with K. So I'm going to plug these into my general function form and have -1/4, the absolute value. Right 6 is x minus 6, and up 1 goes +1. Stretch is a phrase associated with A. Right is a phrase associated with H. And up is a phrase associated with K. So this is 5, the absolute value. Right 7 means x minus 7. Up 4 means plus 4. So once you're given words, this is how I always label them and then plug those numbers into your general function. The great thing about this and why we're doing these 4 equations together is A, H, and K all do the same thing. It's just the general form that's changing. Now instead of absolute value, now we have parentheses with an exponent. So let's do this again with our quadratic. Compress is a phrase associated with A. Shift right goes to H, and down 3 goes to K. So compress is 1/2. Now instead of absolute value, now we're going to put this right 5, x minus 5. We're going to put that in parentheses with this exponent because that follows your general form. And then minus 3 for down 3. Let's skip and do 8. I'm going to compress and reflect by a factor of 6. So those are both A functions. So how about instead of compress, that was supposed to say stretch. Let's fix that. You can't compress by a 6. Okay, so this is going to be a negative 6. We're going to go down 8. Okay, so I switched the order, so that's a K. You can't just assume that it goes AHK every time. And then right is associated with your H. So this one, we switched the order. So I have negative 6, something squared. Right 14 means x minus 14. And down 8 means minus 8. All right. Let's go to the back and do some cubics. Compress is your A. Shift right is your H. Down 3 is your K. So that means I have a half out in front. We've switched to cubic, so now your grouping symbol is just parentheses with a 3 exponent now. Right's 3, your x lies, so you go minus 5. Down 3 is a minus 3. If we skip down to 11 on my square root function, if you did 10, it's y equals negative x plus 2 cubed plus 6. I'm going to compress by a half, so your A, right is H, and down is K. So this time, your grouping symbol is going to be the radical sign. So A is still a half. Right 5 means it lies to you, so this is x minus 5 under the radical. And then down 3, kind of made that little radical a little big. You have this minus 3 at the end. So you will notice that 9 and 11 use the exact same words. So this is why we put this section together, is because the only thing that you need to know is what is my general parent that I'm using. Am I using a cubic? If so, I use the parentheses with an exponent of 3, or is it a square root function, in which case I just use the square root symbol. So the words are the same, it's just which parent am I using. All right, now let's see if we can, given a graph, write the equation of the function. All right, so here I see that I have a parabola. So the general form of the parabola is ax minus h squared plus k. So A is how much does it stretch, compress, or reflect. So this one opens up, so A is definitely going to be positive. If you go from the vertex up to your next point where it crosses at a distinct point, this is kind of like your slope. So from there, I'm going to go up 2 and then right 1. So it's kind of like slope. So this stretches by a factor of 2. This is where your vertex is. So my normal vertex is here at the origin. But to get to this vertex, I had to go right 3. So H is right 3. And then I had to go down 3. So that's your K, because I went down 3. That's why it's also helpful to just write the vertex down. So your vertex is at 3, negative 3. So there's your H, and there's your K. So now all you got to do is plug those two numbers in to your general form, and you're done. So A equals 2, x minus 3 squared, minus 3. Now I have the absolute value. So let's start by writing the absolute value general form. A, absolute value of x minus h plus k. So what is A doing? So we start here at the vertex, and then you look and see where is the graph crossing it at a distinct point in the background. So I'm going up 2 and right 2. So this A is also a slope of 2. So that means we have a stretch by a factor of 2. This vertex is located at negative 4, 1. So that means your graph shifted left 4 and up 1. So there's my H and there's my K. So now when I sub all these values in, A is 2, your H is negative 4, so that negative and that negative, they cancel out and they go plus 4, and then went up 1, so it's plus 1. All right, so the first thing that I would do is the vertex. So the vertex, if you start at the origin, it's located at negative 3, negative 4. So your vertex is H comma K. So there's my vertex. Now I have to see what is my A doing. So A is definitely a negative 1. It's definitely a negative number because it reflected. So look at the slope. So it's going down 1 and then right 1. And so I was correct. So A is negative 1. It's not stretching or anything like the other two did. I have an absolute value, so my general form would be A, absolute value of x minus h plus k. So A is negative 1, x, that minus 3 goes x plus 3, and then minus 4. And then finally it looks like we are going to start off with a square root function. So I have a radical x minus h plus k. So there's my general form. The starting point, aka vertex, is located, so if you start the origin, I went right 1 and down 3, so it's at 1 comma 3, 1 comma negative 3. So there's my H and there's my K. Now I have to look and see, did it stretch? So it did. So you look at what is the next point in the background that it's going to. So this went up 2 and then right 1. So that's kind of like slope. So this kind of has a slope of 2. So it stretches, so A equals 2. So when I just plug all the values in, I have a 2, x minus 1, minus 3. So that's how you go from a graph to writing an equation.